have to come back and check this after 6:20.
Okay.
I can't check until 6:20. You want me to turn this fan off, Wayne?
I got it. Already turned it off. Right or wrong, stand. Yeah. Stan, you've been sitting much too long, much too long. Welcome, 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 welcome to Truth, a radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information leads to knowledge, and knowledge is, you got it, power. And as always, I want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you, your family, and your community. As always, too, hey, I want you to go to the website at www.gwen-truth.com so you can actually link on to those links that will give you the information that will give you power. Yeah. All kinds of power. And I can hear myself speaking in this delayed voice stuff that comes from the radio. Sounds pretty good too. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of our listeners. A shout out to all of you who voted in the recent election on November the 6th. Shout out to all of you, no matter how you voted. Shout out to you because you have participated in one of the greatest opportunities for exercising your democratic will, okay? You did that, and so shout out, applause, pat on the back, kick up the butt, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you too, you know, maybe the person you voted for didn't get elected, maybe the person you voted for did get elected, maybe the issue, the amendment that you voted against got passed, maybe it didn't pass. The bottom line is that you did what you are required to do as a person who is a part of this great democracy. Someone actually referred to it as an exercise or an example of what America is all about. And indeed it is. Indeed it is. Because there are those who are dying for such a right and privilege. There are those who are fighting to ensure that others have such a right and such a privilege. And it is both a right and a privilege. It is a right guaranteed to you by the Constitution, and it is a privilege because you actually choose to do it. You're not required to, as is true in some countries, in some nations, they actually require you to vote, as in Canada. That's why they have a high turnout rate. In other countries, though, there are people who die to vote, and they die on their way to vote, they die when they vote, they die on their way coming back from voting. But see, you don't have to worry about dying.
We just die with the results, right?
Oh, some say that, some not. I have as my guest tonight Chris Daun, who is a community activist. He also is a part of a couple of major projects and programs that others are also part of, and he's going to talk about that and talk about some other things as well. Of course, Chris would have to say too that he was a part of the beautification board until I guess it's official next week at the commission meeting, right? When the commissioner who appointed you will be actually having you taken removed from that board.
No, that was last night.
Oh, it was last night?
It was last night.
Oh, jeez. I was thinking last night and I thought, no, you know, okay, well then Chris has been officially removed as a member of the beautification board. for all of you who serve on boards, and you serve at the pleasure of whomever appoints you, that is true. But it is hoped that when they appoint you for a certain time period, that you will get to serve out that time period. And you don't have to cow down or you know, abide totally by what that person wants just to be able to stay on the board. That you can actually exercise some freedom, you know, some freedom of will or whatever to do that. You know, that is a problem, Chris, and I would just say that that is a problem.
Well,
I think in our country it's a problem, and I'm not just relating it to serving on a board or whatever, but people need to get involved, and they need to be able to be involved and really stand up for what it is that they believe in and those things that they want, those things that they feel are important. And that be, you know, and when you're appointed, that you're given that freedom and that opportunity to do that, as opposed to cowing down so much and, you know, doing what someone wants you to do. Let me just say this, because it was stated, but let me just repeat. Who am I? I'm Gwen Azama-Edwards, former city commissioner, retired city clerk, city of Daytona Beach, current president, CEO of AE Enterprises, Inc., a consulting firm on politics and ethics. Okay, Chris, you're on.
okay, and I'm Chris Daun. I'm the chair of the Halifax Heritage Scenic Byway and also the chair of the affiliate for Rebuilding Together for Daytona Beach. I'm also now been appointed to the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Oh, awesome, awesome. You know, see, that goes to show, Chris, that when you're involved, when you do your homework, you do your research, you do what is necessary and required to get things done. You know, you're not just out there trying to promote your own ideas or promote you. You're out there really trying to help people, help the community, help the county as a whole. And people sometimes will recognize that, and as a result, you will be able to be appointed to some boards, some committees, and the like. Unless, like me, they see you as a threat, so you don't get appointed to anything. But, well, sometimes, every so often you do. But it's a good thing to serve. Don't you feel that serving is a great opportunity and to give back?
I think service is one of the most important reasons why I'm here on the planet. You know, what would my life be like just to, you know, watch TV all day or not be involved in my community or my neighborhood or get to know the people I live with. And also, you know, not necessarily seeing the way that there are aggressive people who are getting involved as far as, you know, pushing different agendas. And I think I have a voice, and just like this show is about standing up, I think there's a lot of controversy out there, and I think there are a lot of people who really want to do evil things, and I have a right to stand up against that. I may not be able to win against it, but I can make a difference. And if all of us kind of believe that, we can make a difference. Because
absolutely.
Remember, the government officials who just got our votes, you know, they work for us, okay? And don't anybody out there forget that, because they needed your vote to get in that office. And whether you voted for them or not, they are servants of their communities, of where the residents are, because the residents voted for them.
And, you know, there are those who feel that once they're elected, they're in there for the full term, you know, the 4 years or 2 years or whatever else. But there is such a thing as a recall election.
That's correct.
And that's for those who, for a certain specified number of reasons that have to be documented, you know, they have not lived up to their responsibility as an elected official. And, you know, that is not as difficult as you might think. So for all elected officials, know this, that you can be removed from office. And just as you were elected, you can also be removed. And it's so important and key, as we're talking about this, Chris, that people understand that, that just as elected officials have a responsibility to serve the individuals who help to elect them and those who don't, but those who are residents and businesses, etc., but especially the residents, the voters, have a responsibility too, and that's that you stay involved, that you get involved, that you actually provide whatever service, as with Chris, serving on boards, serving on committees, going to the meetings, paying attention to the meetings. It's easy now because you can watch the various meetings of your council members, certain ones that are on television, you know, or they're on the internet. You can actually listen in, or you can watch the interplay of those elected officials as they make decisions that impact you, your daily life, your day-to-day life. That is true also of state meetings, your state legislature. That's true also when it comes to the federal government. So you have an opportunity to watch what's going on,
Yes.
to not totally just know what's going on by reading it in the paper, which
Yep.
is sometimes slanted. You have opportunities to exercise your responsibility to be informed and to stay informed in terms of what's going on in your government. And you should not leave it always to others to make a decision on that. Neither should you just decide you're going to act when it directly impacts you. Because whatever happens in your community affects you. It may not be affecting directly your neighborhood, but it is affecting your community, or it's affecting your state, or it's affecting your nation. So please, please, please be informed, be involved, and
volunteer.
Yes, volunteer. Not everything should you have to be paid to do. It's like people in a church, you know, how many years ago Chris studied to be, was it a priest at one time, or in the...
Well, I was more into kind of spirituality type of things.
Okay.
Definitely, but I was.
But you're aware
when
that,
I was a child, I was interested
yeah,
in.
but you are aware of the fact that many years ago, people did things in the church without being paid.
Absolutely.
I mean, they would clean the church, they would cook in the church, they
Right.
would, you know, they would mow the lawns and take care of the landscaping and all of that, and you wouldn't have to pay them. Well, these days, everybody wants to get paid for almost everything,
Mhm.
and, you know, that's not service, that's not giving service. Service is when you're doing something and you're not being paid.
Right.
When you're being paid, you are, as the word says, a hireling. That means that you're hired to do a job and you do the job. You may have some compassion or passion that you use in terms of when you do the job, but you're still being paid. Service is something you give of your time, your efforts, your energies, your expertise, your whatever, because you want to give back, or because you care, and because this is a passion that you have, or whatever else, but you want to help. You know, you want to help others, you want to help the government, or whatever else. And I would say to all of you who are part of a community, part of a government, or whatever, if there is a way that you can volunteer, as Chris has said, you should really and truly volunteer. You know, volunteer your services. Reach out to the elected officials. Reach out to your communities. Reach out organizations, but also your local governments, because they need you too. They also need you. Because as we are faced with, and this is going to become more and more the case, in terms of reduced fundings and reduced dollars that are available to local governments, to the city, county, state, and national level, they're going to need more and more volunteers. A lot of you already do, and my hat's off to you. I applaud you, and a shout out to you as well, you who already volunteer. But for those who can, not everybody can, you know, volunteer. Not everybody has, you know, the gas money to, you know, to use to put fuel in their cars, to drive to wherever they need to go, or money to pay for a bus to get there, or whatever else. But, you know, utilize the buddy system to take places, people to places where they can go. Meals on Wheels, so many of you volunteer for Meals on Wheels. Shout out to you. So many of you volunteer, and you serve on boards to help garner the information that's necessary to make decisions about services that are needed in your community, and how well they're being met, and you know, the accountability part of it in terms of organizations, or in terms of your local governments, or whatever. You volunteer your services, you give of yourself, and for that, again, we shout out, we have a big shout out for you, because you are helping. You're helping. You're not hindering, you're helping. You're part of the solution, not just a part of the problem. I say not just a part of the problem, because all of us, in some form or fashion, truly are a part of some problem. The problem may be traffic on the roads. The problem may be, you know, the lack of volunteerism. The problem may be the lack of direct impact, or lack of feedback to our elected officials, or whatever. Sometimes we are unknowingly a part of the problem as opposed to the solution. So let's get in there, let's get busy, let's get working, because we need to become a part of the solution and not just the problem. Now, you mentioned, Chris, two organizations that you're a part of.
Yes.
Would you take a little time to just share with our listeners what those two organizations or groups
Sure.
are about, in case they would like to get involved, and you can share with them how they can do that?
Sure.
And I think the last one I'd like you to talk about is the one about the community,
The Rebuilding
the
Together.
rebuilding together, yeah.
Okay.
Do the first one first.
Okay, the first one I'm been chair of, it's almost 4 years now, is the Halifax Heritage Byway. And that is it's a federal program, but it also starts out at the state level. So first I become a state byway, and then after we get final designation on that, we then become a federal designated byway. And essentially what that means for people who aren't aware is that those of you who like to travel, you might like to take the back roads instead of the interstate. And that allows you the time to maybe stop and look a community over and go off what I call the beaten trail, and check out little communities and what they're like and what they have to offer. And so Visit Florida, which is the tourism arm of the state, basically works with the convention and visitor bureaus for all the different areas. And what they like to do is put together information for travelers so they can go down different roadways and look at 6 different categories, which is cultural, historical, archaeological, recreational, natural, and scenic. So those 6 different categories are all documented for our area, and that's what the project I've been working on has been doing all of the research to include things like NASCAR history, Black Heritage Trail. Gosh, we have the Spanish history here. We have the English period history here. We have 13 distinct villages that were comprised to just make the city of Daytona Beach. And the Halifax Heritage Byway goes all the way from Ponce Inlet to Granada Boulevard in Ormond Beach on the beach side, and then it goes from Ormond Beach all the way to the city of Daytona Beach on the mainland side. And it celebrates all the different village Main Street areas, and especially Daytona, such as what was known as Midway, Newtown, Waycross, Kingston, all of King's Corners. You know, that was Mason, and Derbyshire was King's Corners. So these are interesting pieces of our own history that, you know, we need to leave for the next generations to understand and to put this down on paper, but also to celebrate it and share it and also use it as an economic development tool for our community, because these areas all had distinctive Main Street. Madison Avenue was Main Street on the mainland, and that goes all the way from Beach Street out to where the hospital is. But Madison Avenue was Main Street on the mainland, and not many people know that, even who live here. So what this does is you can put together a guide in a website, and you can do smart applications for the smartphones and GPS things, but using the new technology, it allows people to come into our community and say, I'm interested in NASCAR history, or I'm interested in the Black Heritage Trail, or I'm interested in, you know, the Spanish history here. And you can go through, you know, finding that information online or through brochures we'll have placed all over, and just either take your car and listen to a guided tour on the radio, or you could use your bicycle, or you could use a scooter or a motorcycle. So there's different ways you can do this, and one of the main things this project is going to do, it's going to bring in recreational events into our area. So when people have like triathlons or these bicycle rides from Jacksonville to Miami, We have the potential to be a stopover for that. We have a great potential because of the amount of history and culture this area has that we seem to have forgotten about. That'll allow us to actually book, eco and heritage tourism people, like Elder Hostel. Elder Hostel is if, you're 55 plus, you can sign up and you can take classes, and it's run usually with partnership with colleges and universities. And then either you can stay in a hotel or a bed and breakfast or a college dormitory. There's different types of, or it's just a one-day, workshop. But the fact is, it's very affordable, and it brings people into our area who are interested in participating in things.
Absolutely. There's not only the cultural and the historical. There's also the economical.
Yes.
And other ways in which this helps to enhance an area,
Yes,
enhance the community.
And also, one of the reasons I'm interested in volunteering to help make this project happen is it'll definitely bring benefits to our quality of life for both the residents and the businesses in Daytona Beach. And I think, it's one thing to sit there and criticize, how bad things are becoming or have been. And this is why we're talking about volunteering is, get up and let's do something about it. You can sit there and complain all day long in your armchair, but nothing's going to change until you get up and help make a difference.
Absolutely. How is this organization funded?
Well, it's funded both by the federal and the state government. They have an enhancement funding to help the various projects. But now as funding, as you know, is being cut back, there are still also lots of grants available. And some of them, like the regular grants that normally would be available in communities, when you get the status and designation part of this completed, what that will do for us as a community is those people who are applying for those grants, like at the Museum of Arts and Science or the Halifax Museum or anything that's already there, with the state, for example, if they put that they're on the byway corridor, they automatically get weighted in their grant applications, just automatically before anybody else.
How does someone assist with this organization and this group?
Well, we have regular monthly meetings. We meet the first Tuesday of the month, and we meet at 2 o'clock at the Daytona Regional Chamber offices. In the downstairs conference room. I welcome
on Orange Avenue.
That's on Orange Avenue in Daytona Beach. And so that's how you can come to one of our meetings. We have an email address. It's halifaxheritagebyway@gmail.com. So if you have an interest, but we do not have a website yet. We're on the last part of what's called like our funding plan and our 5-year plan. And so once we submit that, which will be next spring or summer, we have to go through endorsements by all the local governments, which we have 7 of, and that'll start happening in the new year. But once that happens, we will then be eligible for the seed money to get us incorporated, to become a nonprofit, and we're being set up as a community development corporation, which everybody in the community should know means we need to deliver on the promises of what this potential can be. Instead of just coming up with a plan that sits on a shelf, we're going to make sure we have like an endowment fund, that we have different funding sources. We're going to have like, fundraisers, and under all the different categories at some point. So there'll be, it's like you want to participate in your community, there's going to be something for you that would capture your interests just by living here and share that with visitors. So we have a lot to be proud of here, and I think the state is really excited about this because we actually live in one of the most interesting areas in the state of Florida with all the history and the recreation, and it's all right here. And all these different department heads in the state are on the board for the byways, and they've been watching this project, unfold, and they're like, wow, this is a great asset to the state of Florida. That we're also, by the way, only one of 4 heritage projects or heritage byways in the state of Florida, which you have to have you cannot apply for that status unless you have the history to back it. So,
And so, what our listeners need to understand, I'm trying to say this carefully actually, is that we have a lot of important history in our communities.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of diverse, diverse heritage and
Culture.
diverse cultures.
Yep.
You name it, we have it here. The unfortunate part about it is that not too many people know about it, number one. There are not enough elected officials and others of, you know, at a certain level that even want to know about it or capitalize on it. But it's important, it's something that we should do.
Yep.
And, you know, heritage isn't just about saving old homes. It's
That's right.
about the community.
Right.
What the community has to offer in terms of its history and everything else.
Well, it's also will bring economic opportunity because there are people now, you know, there are a lot of prosperous Black Americans who now travel and want to look at Black heritage and how that was done in the United States, and you know, getting into you know, Bethune-Cookman and the history behind the university and the Thurman House.
Thurman.
Yes,
Mhm.
so we have that here. We have amazing, you know, racing history. We have, you know.
We also
all of-
have history in terms of Cuba. And,
Yes.
you know,
Well,
those who were in power there, who actually used to live on the beachside.
Yeah, well,
you
Batista
know, yeah, right.
fled here from the revolution, but
Mhm.
you know, we have all of this here, and people are interested. We have one of the best art collections of Cuban you know, pastoral art
Mhm.
in the world is
Museum of
here
Arts and Sciences,
at the Museum of
yes.
Arts and Sciences.
Which is one of the better, you know,
Well, also, have
we
you-
don't say it enough, but it is one of the better museums in the country.
Well, and have you seen the African the gold shields that are in that collection that's there? I mean, that is an
Yes.
amazing collection, and the fact that it's here. So we all should be proud. But then when people want to know about jobs, well, for example, if you go to St. Augustine, they have those tour buses that'll
Mhm.
take you around. We don't have that here.
And we have
That-
tour guides that are paid to do just that.
But see,
I mean, they have.
But what I'm saying is that is a business.
Mhm.
We can open that business here and someone could make some money doing that. We could have things like bicycle rentals, skate rentals, skateboard rentals, for people to, once we get the trails all finished, for visitors and locals to use. We have
And-
that great facility.
And we should say though that we know that there are, you know, some tours, a small amount of tours that have been conducted by, on the Black Heritage Trail.
Yes,
I've taken one of those.
yes,
And, you know, they have individuals who are knowledgeable of Black history and the Black history sites in Daytona Beach. But we've got that and we've got so much more. And there's so much more that they could be showing and could be sharing.
yes.
If we were to really, if local government was to get behind it and get some of these places up to snuff, so to speak, as they should be, like the Howard Thurman
Yes.
home. It is really in poor condition, and
Well, and the
it's been allowed
Freemason Lodge,
to,
the
yeah.
Freemason Lodge, that's another sad story.
You know, and we've allowed that, I say we, government, others have allowed those places, our heritage, and it's the heritage of all, whether it's African American or it's Hispanic or whatever, it is all of our heritage, no
It's our
matter your
legacy.
race, your culture, your ethnicity, it is our heritage, and it is a part of, yes, it's our legacy, it is a part of what we want to make sure that our young people are aware of and understand it. It's not always taught, many times it's not taught in the education setting, high school, you know, middle school, elementary school, or whatever else. So there are things that need to be done, that must be done to ensure that our children get a full and complete education on their heritage and the heritage of those who make up our communities. Now, the second group that you're a part of is, and this is something kind of new, right?
Yes, it's a national group like Habitat for Humanity, but
Mhm.
it's called Rebuilding Together. And Rebuilding Together focuses on rehabbing houses. They do not build any new houses.
Mhm.
All they do is go in and rehab or remodel existing homes. And they target low-income families and elderly, especially. And Daytona, as you know, especially in the historic urban core of our city, our largest population are elderly. Okay, and we have a lot of single parent families who are struggling financially just to pay their bills and can't afford home maintenance. And yet we have these beautiful historic homes that are not being maintained, and people need help doing it. So what this project is going to do, and by the way, I'm going to the National Convention on Friday. It's this weekend at the Omni Gate Hotel in Orlando.
And you say you were invited
And I
as
was
a guest,
invited
right?
as a guest, since we're starting a local affiliate here. I'm working with the Black Clergy Alliance, Faith, and
Now they're on board, or you're
well,
I'm
attempting to try to get their endorsements for this project, because this would help a lot of members of their churches in our community, and essentially will provide free rehab of people's homes and after we get established and get organized. The first thing I'm hoping to accomplish in our first year in programming is Daytona Beach does not have a painting program, and that even includes in the redevelopment areas. So we would like to get volunteers to come together, and we'll have two groups. One that does the prep work, which is to me the big work, and then the second group to come in and paint the exterior of homes.
Now, I'm not sure if they still have it in place, but Daytona Beach used to provide paint
No
for
more.
individuals.
Not at all.
In fact, I read something, I don't know if it was on the recent agenda or whatever, where they were talking about someone that had been hired to actually shut down neighborhood stabilization program.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, what I do
That's
know
why I
is
see
it was
that.
on the agenda last night
Yeah,
to continue it, and I think they had to pay again some more money.
yeah,
And
that's
we're
what
not
I
seeing,
read.
yeah, and then I'm not seeing any. What are they doing?
Well,
What do you think they're doing with that? Group?
Well, it speaks to, in the title of that item, it says that that person is to shut down the program. That's what
Really?
it speaks about, shutting down the program, that it takes more money to get it.
Well, it seemed like it was being extended last night, from what I understood. But
Well, he was saying it's gonna take a few more months to shut it down.
oh my
So,
God,
yeah.
I don't know about that.
We might want to check more, because
Well-
definitely neighborhoods do need some stabilization.
Well, and we lost that money because it all went to the Keach Street Apartments, to the housing authority, basically, instead of actually stabilizing neighborhoods, which it could have gone on in ad infinitum, because once they rehab the houses, they could have sold them to first-time homebuyers and families, and then the money goes back in the pot and they recycle
Right,
it and
right.
do more and more.
Well, that's what some other communities did, that's what DeLand did, that's what.
Orlando did a great
I think
job.
Smyrna,
Yeah.
I think even Port Orange did a little of that,
But that was
we put it all in one place.
Well, that was the intention of the program, was to stabilize the neighborhood. So, anyway, I'm doing Rebuilding Together. There is quite a bit of money. And the other program we're hoping to do is to put in central air and heating for people who can't afford it. Now, I can't say we're going to do maybe more than 5 or 10 our first year.
That's an expensive venture, yeah.
Yeah, but there is some money out there, and I also am going to parlay what I do raise to then go to like national people and say, well, I've got 5 units, can you give me 5 more? And hopefully I might be able to get 10 or 15 in the first year.
And community development funds used to go for stuff like that.
Yes, they do.
Years ago,
And apparently
sidewalks and other types
They
of
still
stuff.
have that money. I just don't know where that's all going.
Yeah.
I can't count on that money. I think this is that thing. We have to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And even though the government says they're here helping us, I can't depend on them.
And sometimes you gotta look for the straps to the boots. They may not be easily found,
Yes, I believe that.
So there are several things that need to be done in the community, and that the two groups that you mentioned will be helping. But there's so much more that needs to be done, and you and I have talked about this, and I've often said, they say, oh, there isn't any money, but there is money.
There is money.
There are grant dollars out there, grant dollars that are available, you know, for the person who wants to really put forth the commitment, the dedication, the tireless, towering hours, I know, that it takes at times to find the dollars. There are dollars that are available through corporations, there are dollars that are available through state government, through federal government, through those who just feel good about helping people, and they usually give their dollars to certain types of projects, in certain types of arenas, but the dollars are there, and it's a matter of finding them.
Well,
and soliciting for them.
Yeah, well, another big opportunity that Daytona Beach has right now is because of a lot of the neglected issues in the urban core. I'm on the PACE Environmental Health Board, and one of the things they're doing is there is a lot of funding coming in for doing what are called health impact assessment studies.
And they've done a couple of
And
those.
they've done a couple.
Some walkthroughs and.
But as a result, we're going to do even more of those that are going to help enhance like our parks and recreational programs.
Are you saying that once they do the assessments, which they've already done two, and I know in one they said
They did the
had done a
walkability.
couple of things, had corrected a couple of things, and I haven't seen them, but anyway, as long as there are some things that will follow those,
Well, once
not
you
just assess, but come around
well,
and correct.
The reason the health impact assessments are so vital is that they then put you in the front position to receive further funding to actually correct the issues
So
that
it
came out.
justifies.
It justifies
those
the funding.
funds that are, yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot of health funding right now, which while the other programs are being cut back, there is big money in health funding. So we can hopefully get a grocery store for the downtown neighborhoods. We can get sidewalks and trails for people to walk and ride their bicycles and exercise. We can get better nutrition for our seniors and our children. These are things that wouldn't be available to us if they had not done these health impact assessments. So,
And I don't want anybody out there thinking that we're gonna get a grocery store tomorrow or whatever, because.
I want a super Target.
Yeah.
I want
Because these grocery stores look for certain types of demographics
Yes.
in order to come to an area, because they wanna make money.
I was at
I
Trader
mean-
Joe's just a week ago in Naples, and I do marketing is my background, and I know about site planning and that type of thing. But there are things that people need to realize, that you cannot have these businesses that we want to get in our neighborhoods, and even on our main highways like US 1 or US 92. If you have like a soup kitchen that's 2,000 feet, or a bail bondsman, or these kind of things, they have requirements that we're not going to put anything near those kind of businesses, or a check cashing store. So if you have those, you're limiting to what is going to be able to come in, and I think.
Well, I think it probably also ties into the demographic that relates to the income level, and.
Well, the biggest problem we're facing in Daytona is we seem to be the haven for the United States homeless population. And what's happening here is that you can be from Pennsylvania, come down to Volusia County, you're sent to Daytona Beach, and because that's where the services are. So you're shooed out of the surrounding cities in Volusia County, sent to Daytona. Of course, there's only eight beds at Salvation Army, and like 3 emergency shelter beds at the Homeless Coalition. So that's 11 beds, and 100 people show up into town. But then now what they're doing is they're placing them in rental housing because they don't have the shelter beds. Then they get an ID card that says they're a resident of Daytona Beach. Okay? So here you have someone from Pennsylvania who has no money and no job. They are now placed in housing in our city and given an ID card that says they now are citizens of Daytona Beach, which then directly affect the income levels or demographics of our city. And nobody seems to say, look, one of the things I tried when they were doing the census was to separate those numbers. Those numbers should be affiliated as like temporary, or like if you're in a hospital or something, If if you're in the hospital in Daytona, it doesn't, you're from another place. You know, you're supposed to get counted where you came from. But what's happening in Daytona is they constantly are giving people with no incomes ID cards, which makes it even worse of what we already have.
Well, the other side of that, which I hear when I go to the economic updates that the county puts on, one of the last ones, they stated that our people who live here, who work in another county and make good income, that the funds are counted in the other county. It's
Correct.
not counted where they live.
That is correct.
So we have homeless that are being counted here for
Yes.
where they live, but people who live here who have good jobs going outside of the county,
That's another
their
thing.
incomes are being counted somewhere else. So as a result,
Yeah.
our county is showing as poor and poor, our city is being shown as poor and poor,
Right.
which is, you know, it's not a denigration
But it's not
of
accurate.
these people, but
It's
it
not
does
accurate.
not give an accurate picture of who or what we are. And based on those demographics, we then get, you know, the lower
Tier.
stores,
Well,
you
the
know,
other thing is US 1.
we don't get quality stuff here, guys, in your shopping malls and all that kind of stuff, because it is based, at least in part, on demographics.
Well, the other thing is, I don't think that the people doing marketing in this area are very sophisticated anyway, because one of the things is that we have a lot of road traffic, okay? And you can go to places that, you know, I want to be clear on this, and I'll use this as an example. We're saying that we have kind of sketchy demographics right now, but wait until the Speedway puts in the Daytona Live project, okay? They're going to attract major shops to that project, okay? With or without the demographics. You know, you have.
And that's based upon the fact that the investors that they're convincing to come here are going to do it based upon what they're asking them to do, as opposed to.
But they're going to
just
take a leap
the
of
studies.
faith. They're going to
Yeah,
take a
right.
leap.
Absolutely.
But listen, a lot of development happens that way, Gwen. They take a whole cow pasture, put a shopping center in it in the middle of nowhere, and say, well, we're going to build, you know, 10,000 homes around here. But they'll put a new Publix in there. They'll put a Target
Yeah,
in
the
there.
Publix and the Target will come because they're already planning on building the households that are necessary to help support it.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, right.
So there's no
because
radius.
they're putting it there first before that, but they know that's coming.
But the point being is they say this radius marketing, it's not how they really do things. Somehow people are stuck on that here. I saw that into the article today about Trader Joe's, that, you know, you don't have enough demographics or density. Yes, that is a factor, but for them to keep saying that, something that's like from 30 years ago, that's not how things are done today.
Right.
We could get a super Target on Nova Road, either at the Daytona Mall or across the street. That would bring people in because you have the traffic on 92 and Nova Road.
You listen to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. My guest, of course, is my good friend, Chris Daun. And this is WLE 1380 AM on your radio down in Ormond Beach, Florida. Chris and I have been discussing two major groups and organizations that he is a part of. And these are organizations that are going to be able to help our area in terms of improving the economics of what is here, and hopefully, you know, others will jump on the bandwagon and help you out on that. Now, Chris, before we go off, I still want I gotta talk about politics and elections and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Because you know, people can vote however they want to vote, you know, for whomever they want, etc. But they need to understand that it does impact your area. And, you know, there are individuals with experience, a lot of experience, that ran for offices who were not put in office because people, for whatever reason, really tired of them in those positions, whether it was somebody with the school board, somebody with the Volusia County Council, even, you know, if it was somebody with the city governments, etc. They tired of those experienced people, so they decided that anybody except them would be fine. The problem with that is that sometimes, so that our listeners understand, sometimes investors don't like the inexperienced. Sometimes they want someone with a little more experience that they're going to take the risk of bringing funds, their
Yeah.
funds, into an area. Sometimes legislators don't want to bank on someone that has no experience because they're not quite sure what it is that they're going to vote for, what it is they're going to improve, what it is that they're going to do for the area or to the area. So as a result, they're a little freaked out, and as a result, won't necessarily be listening to those new people. And there are relationships that have been formed by those that are experienced, and as a result of the fact that you've now kicked them out, you may not get what you have gotten. And there are some who say, well, maybe we haven't gotten anything. Well, you'd be surprised as to how much really you get in any government based upon relationships that have been formed. And everything revolves around relationships. I'm sorry, but it is true. Relations do make or break an organization, a community, a state, or a nation. And if you don't have the right relationships, you suffer. Now, maybe you don't suffer for a long time, but you do suffer to some extent, just to make you aware of that. The elections, in terms of some of the things that occurred, and let's really talk about even in terms of the ballot issues. I believe that probably for the most part, a lot of people, well, I told people to vote against all the ballot amendments, constitutional ballot amendments. A lot of other people said the same. There were only 3 of the 11 that passed, and all of those were ballot issues that gave additional property tax exemptions to individuals, whether it was the elderly or the first responders, you know, fire, police, paramedics, and you know, veterans.
In the military.
Yes, veterans who were not a part of or did not reside in Florida before they went and were shot up or whatever.
Yeah.
But they moved to the state and now they can claim that exemption. I guess the one good thing about that is that maybe it'll help more people, draw more people into Florida, to move into Florida, those veterans that are disabled, those elderly, and the first responders, you know, staying here, remaining here, because their spouses, if something happens to them on the job, can now get a tax exemption so they don't have to pay any property taxes for the rest of their days. You know, that type of thing can build the state in terms of its population. But know that the more people that are taken off of the tax rolls, the more you who are left on the tax rolls
Yes.
will be paying.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Yep.
So you agreed to tax yourself. Just know that. And you know, possibly when it's all said and done, what will end up happening is that the money that you refuse to pay toward education with that added tax, you may end up paying anyway.
Yeah,
But that's okay because you made that choice. And you know, the one thing that I think people need to understand is, you know, for every decision there are consequences. As long as you're willing to live, you know, live with the consequences, that's fine.
Can we talk about the school board just real quick? Because
Yeah.
I understand that the budget is $1 billion that they had.
It used to be $1
Do you know what it
billion.
is now?
It is 800 and some thousand now because
Okay.
they've been cut.
But the point being, Gwen, is that we only have something like 60,000 students in the whole system. So when I did $1 billion, excuse me, I
About
did a,
61,000 is what they're down to now.
right. So
They have pretty much followed the population of the city of Daytona Beach. They used to be about 64 or so, which we used to be as well.
but
Now
what
they're at
I'm
61.
looking at is what is the math for that per student cost in Volusia County? In that, what is it in other counties? You know, what is their cost per student? So you divide whatever the budget is, like you said, 800 and something thousand divided by the 61,000, and I think
Well,
it would
but
be like
that's,
about
but that-
$12,000 per student.
No,
That is
no.
crazy.
That's based, the formulas per student that you get per student, everything else is based on whatever the state approves.
No. I know
So
what you're
locally,
saying.
they don't approve it.
No.
The state-
What I'm saying
state
is
formula.
the budget, the total budget for the school board is like, what did you say, $850 million, right?
It's about 800 and some. I'm on the
So
high
if you
side of
take
$800,000.
$850 million and divide that by 61,000, you're gonna end up with a figure around $13,000 per student.
Still less than we pay to incarcerate somebody in prison.
Right, well, and I wanna be clear though, that, you know, what are other counties paying per student? Do you see what I'm saying? And when, in today's article, when they were talking about, oh, we're facing cutbacks to athletics to arts, you know, and substitute teachers. It's like those are like low-hanging fruit that they can go after. I'm not hearing anything about going after the 8 assistant principals at one school, or all these other heavy administrative people that are making 6-figure salaries.
Those have been cut.
I don't think so.
Yep. One of the questions, I just had them on the show, one of the questions I asked to the school officials was, and this wasn't on air, but it was aside from it before we came on, I said, you know, what about all those 4 or 5 area superintendents that you guys had? Well, they said that they now only have 2, and that is what they had about a decade ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so that has been cut. And what they do now is, you were talking about the number of assistants, et cetera, that's not the case either, because now what they're doing is something they aren't doing anywhere else. They're actually having a principal be a principal of not just one school, but more than one school.
Really?
Yes, as a way of cutting back.
Okay.
So I'm saying, there are things that they have done to accommodate some of the cuts so that they don't end up having to, you know, willy-nilly, if you want to say that, cut back on the teachers. But the bottom line is the reason, and you got to understand, and you have to accept this, because I sure do, the fact that we're having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars because we're not meeting the minimum number of
It's the highest
students.
thing on my tax?
Yeah.
It's on my
No. We're having to pay, we're being fined because we don't have these class size. We're not meeting the class size limit.
Right.
That means, and the reason we're not is because we don't have sufficient teachers in place to accommodate that. So until we have that, we will continually pay in fines. Now that money isn't going to any student, it's not going to any teacher or anything else. We're paying fines to the state of Florida.
Wow.
And then they take those fines, those dollars, and they redistribute them, not back to us, but back to those other places that already have the money, and they're already meeting that standard. So, you know, if you want to say there's something wrong somewhere, I say there's something wrong in terms of the formulas that we have, and I call it the palm trees and sunshine, you know, differential that they use that says that because you live here, you know, you don't need as much money as somebody who lives even in Seminole County.
Okay, well, by the way, there is a rumor floating around that you might be running for school board.
And you asked me to clarify that, and no, I'm not running for the Bush County School Board.
Okay. Good.
I hear there are a couple of good applicants that are running, and I wish them the best. I wish them nothing but the best.
Okay.
But our school system is in trouble. We remember, if you remember back when we had the problem where they had cutbacks, and that athletics was one of the first things, arts was another that was being cut and hit, and local businesses and parent groups and the like came up with funds to fund those programs, to continue them so that the students were able to continue to participate in those programs.
Well, this is what the foundation should be doing.
Yeah, and I'm not, you know, I'm not pushing that's, you know, all that we should have, but as a part of education, a part of the development of these students, they do need those kinds of cultural, those kinds of athletic activities. Those athletic activities, I've said it time and time again, sometimes mean the difference between a student staying in school and dropping out. And that's true for so many. If you listen to some of the leaders, there are some that dropped out, and you know they're so intellectually up there that you know they never went back to school. But that's a rarity. Most people want and need, or at least they need, education. It's the difference between especially those who are poor, those who are already, you know, a part of what is called the lost generation. It's the difference between them making it or not.
Yep.
And I voted for that. You know, the News Journal was one of the few group recognized entities that spoke out against it. And to now, when they warn you that those things would happen if they didn't get the funding, and if they're saying that that's now what's going to happen, hey, they told you. So,
we gotta step up and make a difference.
And I hope the people who voted against it will step up and make a difference and don't just say, well, school board, cut, because as they said, they're already cutting, And if you'd like to see more cut, then, you know, go in and do what we said. Go in and volunteer
Yep.
in some of those positions where they're paying people to do them. Now, I don't want to see anybody get out of work, you know, but maybe you could go in and volunteer. You know, they're going to check you out with all the tests that are necessary to make sure you don't have a record and all that kind of stuff. No
'Cause you're
criminal
with the
background.
kids.
Right.
You're with the
But you would have an opportunity to give back. And I think that would be a great thing, again, for all of us. We started talking about volunteerism. It is key, it is important. And if you're getting the money, you know, through your Social Security or through some other means, you know, you got this great pension or whatever, and you got some time on your hands, go in and volunteer.
Well, one of the things that the PACE group, which is now called HEAT, is working on is to set up a community endowment fund, which, I mean, think of how long Daytona Beach has been in existence, and we don't have an endowment fund for our community.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that came up was all the athletes that were like produced through the PAL Center and Bud Asher and all, you know, that are making, they were signed to major contracts, but they came out of nothing, and we were saying, you know, maybe it's time, you know, to pay it forward to the next generations, like you're saying, to help fund some of these opportunities for our kids.
And you do have at least a couple of athletes that are doing
Yep.
that, and we know that. But you also have, through Bud Asher, a group that recognized, you know, what he had given back to the community.
Right.
And they set up this foundation that will actually have funding that will provide scholarships for those who, and they don't have to be athletes, for those who graduate from mainland and the like, to actually have scholarships to go on to college.
That's
So
great.
there's funding in that regard. You know, one of the things we heard about from the school board people too is the fact that, you know, we know the lottery, you know, they said that what they would do is give money to education, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And it would not supplant anything, but it would actually be additional dollars. And we know that that's not true. It has not been the case since, you know, the lottery was put in place. And if we had more of those dollars, you know, that actually came to education, that would help. And if we had fewer of those dollars that went from public education to private, that would also help. But as they mentioned, you know, we've got gifted programs that the dollars are going for. We've got community colleges now that the dollars are going for, which was not initially the case. We've got other things that the dollars are being pulled from that and going to something else. And so public education suffers. It suffers. And local school board people, and I'll say this for those who are running for the seat, you know, local school board people take the heat for what the state legislature has not done and requires that they do. They are the ones who in the Constitution have a responsibility for providing quality education in the state of Florida. They have not done that. They continually refuse to do that, and they continue to pass it on down to the local level.
Yeah.
And you know, if somebody wants to get upset about what's happening, get upset with your legislators that are doing that. While they pontificate about the fact that they're doing all of this for education. Well, we did more for this and more for that. I could use the word liar, but the bottom line is that when you look at it, it's not true, Mr. Governor. It is not true. And you need to do more, and everybody needs to do more.
We're going to send love to our legislators.
Yeah, of course, I love the legislators, but that doesn't stop me from saying to them that you need to do more. You need to do more. And you and I will agree on this, I'm sure, that we need to not only invest in our communities, because that's where our young people are living, where our elderly are living,
Yep.
where our families are living, etc. But we need to invest in our young people as well. They're not only our tomorrow, they're our today.
Yep.
As I've continually said, and I've heard more people start to say that now, not because I've said it, but because people are seeing that. Education is about economics.
Yes.
And it
brings people
pays
here.
to invest. Yeah, it brings people here, and it helps to keep them here.
Yep.
And especially if we have the jobs that are tied to, you know, improvements in our educational level. And so all of it ties in together, all of it works together. So as all of you either celebrate or get sick or whatever over the elections, just know that people voted into office, amendments passed or not passed, referendums passed or not passed, whatever has happened during election day, one of the things we can say is, thank God at least some of the ads have stopped. But you know, they're still talking about it, I swear. So, you know, politics is going to be with us until the grave. But how we respond to, as we've talked about, Chris, volunteering, taking responsibility, as we respond to our civic engagement, our civic involvement, our ensuring that we're informed, that we're as informed as possible about what's going on, and our involvement.
Right.
Not just leaving it to somebody else and everybody else, but also you getting involved as well. And again, for so many of you out there who are getting involved, who are volunteering, who are getting informed, who are working to inform others, who are you know, not just thinking of self and the greed part of it, which gets us into more problems than we can handle, but you're caring about other people and about changing things for the better. For all of you, I say shout out to you and thank you so much.
Yeah, one of the things I went before we closed was that at the Main Street Redevelopment Board a couple of weeks ago, there was threatening lawsuit by Dino Papalakis. Paspalakis, who was one of the boardwalk vendors there, and but it had to do with something.
He was a board member too, Main Street board member.
Yes, he was
Yeah.
at one time. Anyway, but he's the one who went through eminent domain on his property there, and he won. But now this.
Yeah, I was a supporter of his at the time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what ended up happening was he's saying that this thing he's calling was reverse condemnation, and what it has to do is when the policies of the city make it impossible for you to utilize your property the way that you had purchased it for the intention of it being a business or whatnot. So the city's policies are like with the E-zone, that's what he was upset about, but these kind of policies exist all over our city, like what's called the non-conforming rule, or the zoning that's outdated, that's 40 or 50 years old in some of our streets. I have a thing in my neighborhood that went to the code board today with some people who are investors. You know, we say we want people to come and buy here, but what happened was they bought a houses with the intent to retire. They didn't know that they bought in the middle of a residential street and that the houses were zoned business professional. They had a small fire upstairs. Then when they went to go pull permits to fix it, essentially they were told, oh no, we can't give you the permits because it exceeds the value of the 65% rule. And then secondly, you can't live in it as a residence because it's zoned business professional. They couldn't do anything with that property. So then code enforcement cited them with, what is it, repair or demolish order, and took them to code today to say either you tear down the house or you fix it into an office, which it's a house. So how are we going to attract new businesses here? And the biggest challenge I think we have in our city for the new blood coming in is how are we going to fix these archaic rules right now? Because we're all saying, we're all up in, we want new investors and we want this. Well, this has got to be fixed tomorrow. Because the other thing is, we are taxpayers, we're also liable to those investors who are losing their shirts. They can sue the city of Daytona Beach, and that's why it's called reverse condemnation, because they've lost their values. And it makes it really hard for investors to come in here. And I'm looking to this issue specifically now that it's been brought to our attention at the Main Street Board, because again, there's been a lot of discussion. I was on the show before, we talked about planned shrinkage and about when policies are in place to keep everybody down. And that means you get fought when you want to do positive things, like my neighborhood doing the Ridgewood overlay.
Oh, you have that all around the city.
Right,
Yeah.
the Midtown plan is being fought now, and you know, all these different things are going on that would be positive things, and we can't have them. So what's behind, what's behind the curtain on all that? And a lot of it seems to be the planned shrinkage and the reverse condemnation. But it's up to this new government, because the other part is, while the officials work for us as the electorate, city staff works for the commission. And the commission will not challenge them. Well, they're supposed to.
Yes.
And either they're gonna step up and make the staff do their jobs, or we're not gonna get anything. And I hope that people listening out there hold your council person or your commissioner feet to the fire and say, look, we got you into office. We now want you to hold staff accountable and do what they're supposed to do.
And what sometimes can happen is when you have new people who are not as knowledgeable, they allow staff to make all of the decisions and to lead them around by the nose.
And that's why we're in the predicament we're in right now.
Well, that has been kind of a little bit, yeah.
A lot of it.
Or you have those who think they have the most experience on the board or council or whatever, who end up then telling even the mayor what it is that should be happening and should be going on. And when questions are directed to the mayor, they are the ones who answer the questions. So
that happened last night, I heard a little bit.
So we need to, again, not only hold your elected officials accountable, but you got to take some responsibility yourself. These people are still human beings. They're still individuals who, and nobody knows it all, but hopefully they will be individuals who are anxious to learn and who are in it to help you, because that's what service is all about. As I started out saying as well, service is about giving back. Service is about helping others. It's not about helping yourself. When you help yourself, then you're just greedy, okay? But when you help others, you're really providing a service, and that's what we want from our elected officials, because they are public servants. Public servants. They aren't, masters. They aren't people who just grab at it, and takers. But they are people who are also doers. And we congratulate all of those who have won elected office. We congratulate all of the candidates who ran. We congratulate them both because it takes something to really put yourself out there. And so we say thank you, our hats off to you. And now that you're elected, get the job done. Do what's not only demanded, do what's expected of you by those who put you in office. And if their desire to put you in office was to just take care of just them, then that's the wrong kind of motivation too, because you're in office to take care of the entire community, the entire county.
We need help.
And
we
all need help.
Yep.
Hallelujah.
Yep.
And amen. Thank you to all of our listeners. You've been listening to Truth with Azama-Edwards. My guest, of course, again, Daun. And Chris is a community activist and serves on several important groups. If you want to know more about them, is there a way they can contact you, Chris, that you want to share, or what's a better way?
Try reaching me through the byway, the Halifax Heritage Byway,
okay.
at gmail.com.
Okay,
Halifax Heritage
Byway
at gmail.com.
If you want to know more about the two groups that he's mentioned. Again, shout out to all of you who voted, shout out to all of those who won, shout out to all of those who ran for office, shout out to each and every one of you. Thank you so much, and be sure to listen in every Thursday starting at 6:15 until we boot the big guy out of the chair. To Truth Radio, remember, stay involved, stay informed, stand up for that which is important and right, okay? You've been listening to Truth with Azama-Edwards. And a shout out to all the veterans for Veterans Day.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. God bless. And have a blessed weekend.
Your host, Azama-Edwards.